excited to welcome back to the Kelly Alexander Show an amazing, talented, award-winning Canadian recording artist, producer, and writer, Mr. Josh Ramsay, who of course is the front man for Mariana's Trench. He's recently released his debut solo album called The Josh Ramsay Show, and is here to talk to us all about it. Josh, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Kelly. How are you?
I am fantastic. The last time you and I had a little chit chat is when you did a live stream with us during pandemic, and we had a good chat with our Virgin Radio audience. And you were like in the midst at that point of your rock and roll kitchen. So has that had to take a bit of a back seat because you've been so busy with the album?
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly a priority compared to music stuff. So yeah, I've still done a few. We've still done a few since then. But yeah, I've been kind of busy with the whole music thing.
Okay, very good. And when did you decide to do the solo album? Was it during pandemic when you knew you couldn't be out touring?
Sort of. I had always planned on doing a record where I played all of the instruments myself. That was sort of on my bucket list to do one day. And then it was basically just like quarantine and the pandemic just provided the right opportunity for me to do that. Because normally, working in Mariana's Trench as a full-time job, and it's also a full-time job producing and writing for other people as well. So I just never had the time. And then the pandemic happened, and like the band and I couldn't see each other anyway. So I was like, well, now's the time.
And when you were working on the overview or the big picture of the solo album, did you have a plan in mind, or were you just going sort of off inspiration day by day?
Yeah, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. It started as I talked to my manager and I said, I think I want to do a solo album. What do you think? And he said, sure. And then he said, but what does that look like? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you're the writer in Mariana's Trench. And I said, yeah. And he goes, so you're not just going to make a Mariana's Trench album on your own, are you? And I was like, well, no, I don't think anyone would be interested in me doing that. I don't think fans would like that. I don't think the band would like that. And sort of just what would be the point? So then he was like, so what is it going to be then? Like, what style are you going to do if it's not what you do with Mariana's Trench? And that sort of got me thinking. And I was sort of like, well, I do write for other artists a lot, and I enjoy playing around in genres that I can learn new tricks in and stuff. So then the idea just sort of came to me that rather than stick to one thing, I'm just going to do as many different genres as possible. And then after that, it was just kind of like I had a list of like things I wanted to try, and then I would just kind of follow my instincts and go from there.
That's amazing. And so many questions I have for you about this, because first of all, when I look at even the title of the album, The Josh Ramsay Show, it obviously has like a variety feel to it, which is what's transpired with the different genres.
Yeah.
Did you know going in, or when you decided this plan of having different genres, were there any you weren't going to touch?
That's a good question. Nobody needs to hear me try and rap. So I didn't do that. I can't rap at all. And I made sure to I didn't want to do anything that was like, wow, this really sounds like Mariana's Trench. Like, I wanted to make sure to stay away from that. There are a couple of spots where you would be like, well, that's kind of like Mariana's Trench. Like there's the song I wrote for my mom has an a cappella section that does sound like something we would do. But to me, that song is to remember my mom, and vocal harmony and stuff is something that I learned from my family. So that also really does feel like family to me. But yeah, other than that, I really just tried to stay away from the Mariana's Trench vibe and try and do the unexpected.
I wanted to ask you too, was the band super supportive of you doing this? Because I know at the time everybody was in pandemic and lockdown, all that stuff, but knowing now that you're heading out on tour and this is potentially taking away from MT time, was that any like disturbance for them?
No, everyone was really supportive. I think it partially came at a good time for them as well, because both Matt and Mike have very young like newborn babies. So I think that would not have been a good time for them to be in the studio every day or going on the road every day or all the time. So everyone's been really, really supportive, which is great. And then this summer, I'm going to be doing like a mix of solo shows and Mariana's Trench shows. So I'm trying to not really take away from that. I'm also currently in the studio working on Mariana's Trench right now.
Okay. Ooh, I love that we got a tidbit of information on MT stuff. This is great. You have such an eclectic mix of features on the album, like Serena Ryder and Fifi Dobson and Tyler Shaw, and of course, Chad Kruger from Nickelback. Were they on your bucket list of people to work with, or obviously good friends of yours as well, I imagine?
Yeah, both for sure. I did kind of, Serena specifically, when I first set out to, I was like, oh, it would be cool to get a lot of guests. Like that would be kind of fun. And Serena was someone that was just like, I really wanted us to get a chance to sing together. I'd always wanted us to sing together. I'm a huge fan of hers. So I did have her in the back of my head of being like, I don't know what the song looks like yet, but I know I'm going to write a song to send to Serena and hope that she says yes. And then when I got around to that song, I was picturing her voice when I did eventually write it. Chad and I, that was like, Chad actually almost sang some guest vocals on a Marianas Trench song one time, and then scheduling didn't permit it. So my sister did it instead. There's a Marianas Trench song called Astoria, and there's one little section where my sister comes in going, "Do I survive you, Astoria?" And that was originally going to be Chad, but then schedules just like it didn't permit. But I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, because this is a way better use of Chad and I singing together. And that song, that was one of the first ones I wrote for the record, and I was definitely picturing his voice the whole time. And that can be a dangerous thing, because then the reality hits you of like, okay, now I'm really attached to hearing his voice in my head singing this. What if he says no? Oh my God. And like at this point, I'm like, yeah, like it's got to be Chad or no one. And especially that song specifically, I was like, if Chad says no, I don't know anyone else I can add. I don't know anyone else who could sing this. Any other male singer who could do this. So thank God he said he said yes. Pretty much everybody. That was the other really great thing, because of pandemic. No one was on the road, so everybody was available. Like all of showbiz was pretty much shut down there. So so everybody was available and wanted to work. And I think was starved for like doing creative things. There were only a couple of people that I asked who couldn't do it, not because they were like saying no, but because they were busy doing their own projects. But for the most part, just about everybody did it.
Amazing. And honestly, the Chad song is sick, and so is Serena Ryder's. And I wanted to ask you, what does it feel like? Because Lady Mine came out as like the lead single, and you've got such positive response for it. It's getting airplay across Canada. How does that make Josh Ramsay feel?
I feel great about it. I mean, I think like when I released that song, I think at first everyone was like, what? I know, because it doesn't sound like something people would associate me with, or really something they would associate Chad with either. Like really, when I was working on that song, like taking our voices out of it and just talking about like the music for a second, I would really approach that to like, I want to write something that sounds like something that Lenny Kravitz would do. Like that's what I was picturing, was like something that Lenny would do. Now, of course, what I ended up with was not something that Lenny would do, because he would have so much more restraint than I do, obviously. But basically that song was a combination of being like, I want to write something in the style of Lenny Kravitz. So like a 70s I know he was like more of a 90s guy, but he was a 70s throwback, still is a 70s throwback guy. So I was like, I'm going to write a song that definitely has a horn section. And I wanted to have like rock guitar in it. And then the other thing that came up for me was I knew, so like whenever I've been in a bar and like been a little drunk and like gotten pulled on stage with a cover band, it always ends up being AC/DC every time. So I knew that if I put my voice in a certain register, the sort of no stop sign, speed limit, I knew my voice would just do that up there. So I purposely put it in the same key as Highway to Hell on purpose, so that I could get that tone. And then thank God, Chad sounds amazing doing that tone as well. So it's almost like we should have changed the title of that song to The Ballad of Two Chainsaws or something. But yeah, I was also nervous, as like I knew rock radio would embrace Chad, but I was kind of like, are they going to have me back? I don't know, because it's not, I'm not known as like a total rock guy. But you know, it's a little bit slow to start, and now people have really gotten on board, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Amazing. Do you think you're going to release like several more singles from the album?
Yeah, I think so. We're talking about doing quite a few videos. Because I mean, it's so all over the place. It's not like one song can just represent the whole album. Like, not at all.
It's amazing. It's such a great, and it's funny because like there hasn't been an album that's really excited me in a while, and yours does that. Just because, well, for obviously I'm a huge fan of yours, that's no question, but just the variety of that, because I'm so used to obviously with MT, but like just hearing like you trying this and you trying that and it working, like it's so cool. Like I just think more artists should, because it's like you put yourself out on a limb and it's worked.
A big limb. Thank you. I mean, yeah, it was a big risk. And you know what's funny is, while I was doing it, I never really considered that it was that much of a risk. And then all of a sudden, like 2 days before the album came out, I went, oh God, what have I done? And I never even considered, like, in doing that, it's a risk in a couple of ways. It's if you want to have a record that's like shows a lot of variety and versatility, that means you're also asking the audience to be open to a lot of, and be versatile themselves in their listening. So I hadn't really considered that. And I also, like right on the eve of it coming out, was like, yes, so I've done a little bit of everything here. So that runs the risk of alienating everybody. Like, and so I kind of had a pang of panic. And then it came out, and people do seem to be responding to it really positively. And I'm so grateful. It's also just like a huge weight off my shoulders, because I've just been sitting on it since August. Like, the record's been mixed and in the can since early August. So I've just been waiting around, just ready to go. And I've had this sort of anxious feeling about that sort of night before going back to school feeling for like 6 months or more. So I'm just so relieved to finally have it out there now.
Was there a reason why you had to wait so long to put it out?
Yeah, just timing stuff. I mean, basically it was like, record gets finished mixing in August, and then mastering came back in like the beginning of September. And then by that point, it's like, well, we need time to get stuff in order. Like, if we put something out right now, then we won't have done all of the promotional stuff first. And then what happened was, I was like, then all of a sudden you're into the Christmas season. And it's really not a great idea for someone like me to be releasing something at Christmas time, because, as you know, all the formats kind of shut down. And that's also when all the huge artists like Ed Sheeran or Adele, that's when they'll release something. So you don't want to get buried under that. So we did still release Lady Mine at like the very beginning of December, which was a bit risky, which is why I think it had that slow start, because everybody just freezes for like 6 weeks there. So it didn't really start to pick up until after the Christmas season, but at least there was something out, and people knew there was an album coming.
Where were you, and how did it feel the first time you heard Lady Mine on the radio? Like, have you had a chance to hear it like on a station in Vancouver?
No, I haven't been listening. I've just been focused on working on the new Mariana stuff now. I'm just kind of like, okay, it's out. I don't really pay attention too much to that stuff after it's come out.
Okay, cool. I had a couple more questions for you. First of all, when you head out on tour, obviously you're going across the country. Is it going to be like a different vibe for you because your boys from MT are not with you? Like, how?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be weird, right? For me, and probably for the audience too. Maybe I hope not. I put together a great band. I feel really good about it. I think everyone's really great that's in the band, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. One interesting thing with putting together a new band was, since there's so many duets on the album, I needed at least a couple of singers that could, like, not just be background singers but be lead singers. So, because I'm not going to be able to tour with all of the people on the album, obviously. So finding that was a little bit difficult, because I needed to be like, okay, so I need someone who can sing harmonies, can also sing lead vocals, and hopefully play 2 or 3 instruments. But I've done it. Not I've done it. They exist, and they're in the band. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be a lot of trading instruments between the 5 of us, and hopefully some special guests here and there. Yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I had to ask you too, knowing that you played like basically all the instruments on this album, did you have like anxiety about doing that, or was it just like, yeah, I'm doing this because I want to like have a project where it's just me, because it's really Chad, it's really Josh, it's you, like the whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's me except for the orchestral stuff and like the horn sections, but all the core stuff is me. No, I wasn't nervous about that, because so like when I was a teenager, my dad had this very famous recording studio where I grew up, called Little Mountain Sound. And eventually, when I was about 4 or 3 or something, he started to get frustrated because his studio was becoming so successful, which was great, but he never had time to actually use it himself because it was always booked. So then he decided he was going to build a studio at home. So we had this, so what he did is he turned the garage into a live room, and then he built a control room onto that. And there was this beautiful vintage Neve console in there. And so I grew up with access to, it's a very odd way to grow up, I know, but I grew up just surrounded in music and with ready access to recording gear all the time. So basically I learned to play each instrument that I learned to play out of necessity, because I was writing songs and recording them. And I was like, okay, this song has piano, and I already could play piano. And then I was like, okay, I want this song to have piano and guitar. Okay, I'm gonna like learn how to strum enough guitar to play this song. Oh, okay, this one needs drums. Okay, I'm gonna learn how to, and I just slowly pieced together being able to play stuff. So really, actually, working on this record, I just felt like a kid again. I felt like a teenager again. It reminded me of the way I made music when I was a teen. It was just by myself in the studio all hours and just laying down whatever on whatever instrument. And it really just like really reminded me of being a teenager.
That's amazing. Do you have a favorite instrument, Josh, that you write to, or write with, I should say?
I don't. I'm weird that way. I don't write songs by playing any instruments. I just do it internally. So like I'll picture a melody in my head. Hang on, I'll show you what I mean. So I'm holding a guitar now. So and my headphones are falling out. Let me just put those back in so I can hear you. So like let's say we had a song and like da, 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 da. So let's say that's the melody stuck in my head. Ba, 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 ba. And then in my head, I start to picture, so what are the chords that could go with that? We could go. Da, ba, ba, da, 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 da. Or maybe we want to go. Da, 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 and I'll picture the different chord progressions that could work, and then and figure out which one supports the melody the best, and then that's what I go with. So usually by the time I start recording, I've worked out all of the melodies and all of the chord structure first, but just all in my head.
That's amazing. That's so crazy. Like I can barely play the cymbals. So it's good to talk to someone who knows what they're doing.
And
I have to ask you too. I know we got to bounce soon. A couple of quick questions. Sure. I call it fast facts with Josh Ramsay. Okay. If you could switch places with another artist or producer for one day, who would it be and why?
Brian Wilson in the early 70s. I'd love to be a fly, or the late 60s. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for the Pet Sound sessions.
Amazing. Now, I know you have a lot of cool people in your phone, but apart from your family and friends, who's the coolest person in your phone that you can call up or text?
I don't know. I don't know. If they're a Canadian musician, chances are they're in my phone.
Amazing. Okay, that's cool. Finish this sentence. The best thing about Montreal is
the nightlife.
How important is fashion and style for Josh Ramsay?
Very.
Do you have a favorite style that you kind of go with, or is it an amalgamation?
It's an amalgamation, but there's one through line for me is I always, whether it's like red carpet or casual or just ready to wear, I always make sure that it's rock and roll from any era though. I don't care. It can be 50s to now, but it's got to be rock and roll.
What is the best thing about being Josh Ramsay?
God only knows.
Okay. And finally, do you have a message for your Montreal fans?
Yeah, I do. It was great to see you guys. Mariana's Trench played a show there like a week and a half ago, and it was kind of like the first show back, like the first no mask indoors, and it's okay. And I'm so happy that it was in Montreal. This is going to sound pandering, but it's actually the truth. Montreal are some of the rowdiest crowds on the whole planet. And I know that sounds like I'm making something up, but keep in mind, if you look at anybody's live concerts, they're almost always in Montreal. And there's a reason for that. It's because everybody knows that Montreal is always good to be like so fired up in the crowd. So it's true, like Queen live in Montreal, like everybody's live in Montreal. So I was so excited that our first real show back could be in Montreal with the rowdiest crowd. And we just had such a great time.
Amazing. Well, you know, I love you. I appreciate you making time for us, and continued success. I can't wait for the second solo album.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's so nice to see you. And thank you so much for having me. Perfect.
That is Josh Ramsay. Don't forget to hit up his website for all of his social media handles. Hey, it's Kelly. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching and listening to our interviews. We always appreciate your time. Please make sure to follow us on our YouTube channel and also hit up our website so that you can subscribe to our newsletter so you are always up to date with everything that we have got going on with the show. KellyAlexanderShow.com/subscribe.